Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 12 of Outside the Letterbox. Today, we're going to be discussing what we've watched recently, some film news, and discuss this weekend's blockbuster hit, 22 Jump Street. But first, you can find more episodes of Outside the Letterbox on our website, the-letterbox.com, on iTunes by just searching for Outside the Letterbox, as well as on Feedburner. Leave us a review on iTunes or comment on our site. Today I am joined by my co-host Nick
Hey,
and a good friend of ours who joined us a few months back, Alex Patin. Say hi, Alex.
Hello, everyone.
Um, so yeah, I guess we're just gonna move right into what we've watched recently. I actually haven't watched anything recently except for what's in theaters. We're saving How to Train Your Dragon 2 for next weekend. To talk about that. So I'm going to pass it off to Nick. Nick, go ahead.
so I've been watching a lot of Hitchcock movies recently, and so there are a lot of those I can talk about. But the one that stood out to me was Rebecca. I don't know if you guys have seen that one, um, but it's like most Hitchcock movies, it's a psychological thriller, um, but it's a little different than most of his other movies. It's way more. It feels more like a traditional drama for most of the runtime, but the movie kind of takes a really dark turn about halfway through into the third act, and kind of without giving it away, I think it's one of his darker movies and one of his more uh, creepy and kind of freaky movies. I don't know. At least it freaked me out in a way that I wasn't expecting, especially in the finale. And I think a huge part of that is the way he uses the black and white photography. Like there's a lot of certain characters are in shadow, certain characters aren't, and like there'll just be like strips of light. So like a whole character will be in shadow except one stream of light going across their face, and it just wasn't what I was expecting. It kind of surprised me in a really positive way. So I definitely recommend, if you guys ever get the chance to check out Rebecca. It's definitely a movie that, from a technical perspective, I'm really looking forward to going back because Hitchcock moves the camera around in certain ways, and just the way he uses the visuals to tell the story. I feel like I wasn't able to absorb it all on a first watch through, because I was really trying to pay attention to the story and kind of how things kind of change up every 10 or 15 minutes depending on who's telling their version of the story or whatnot. And so I don't know if you guys have seen it, but I definitely recommend checking it out.
I have not seen it. The only thing I know about it is that a lot of people throw that movie around when trying to impress each other about what movies they've seen.
Oh, really? Well, I hadn't seen it till today, so now I can do that.
No, I just remember there's certain people you talk to and you're like, oh yeah, I like Alfred Hitchcock movies, and they're like, oh, have you seen Rebecca? Like that's always seems to be the one that
Yeah, I think
talk about.
I don't know. It was the first movie he made when he came over to America,
Right.
after spending the first part of his career in Britain, and so it's kind of famous for that. It's also the first Hitchcock movie. It's the only Hitchcock movie actually that ever won Best Picture, and it was his first one that he ever got nominated for Best Director for. And I think because from the outside it looks like a completely different movie than the rest of his well-known movies like Vertigo or North by Northwest, because it looks like a drama when you kind of look at it on the surface, but when you get deep down, I think it has a lot of the same themes that you do find in something like Vertigo, or even in like Hitchcock's personal life. Like there's a lot of famous stories about him trying to mold his actresses into a specific image, and that's kind of what Vertigo is about. And I feel like that's kind of what this movie is about, but in a different way. So obviously, without spoiling it, I won't go into that. But I definitely recommend, if you ever get the chance to check it out. Just for the visuals alone, but it's got a great story, I think, to go along with it.
Sweet.
And then another movie I checked out this week was Steven Spielberg's War of the Worlds. Kind of after seeing Edge of Tomorrow last week, I kind of decided to go back into the other Tom Cruise sci-fi movies. So I checked out Minority Report, which holds up great. But War of the Worlds was a movie that I thought I'd seen, but it turns out I really have just seen like the first act a million times on television, and I'm still not convinced that the whole movie works as like a cohesive whole. I think the movie works better as like a string of like these extended moments or sequences that are really well done. But the one scene in particular that stood out to me is that kind of extended suspense sequence in the basement where Tom Cruise and Dakota Fanning are hanging out with Tim Robinson, and most of that scene. I mean, it's got to be the whole sequence has got to probably take up about 20 minutes, and I think 15 of that is without dialogue and just characters trying to move around as the alien probes come in and try to snuff them out. Super suspenseful, you know, right up there with the best stuff that Spielberg's done. Even if I don't think the movie is one of his best.
I really liked that movie when I saw it in theaters when it came out, and I really enjoyed it. I remember people. What's really frustrating is I remember coming out of the movie and talking with people, and there were people who were really frustrated with how the movie ended. Um,
Oh yeah,
which
I was watching it with people, and I remember the ending from the book, just from reading like it was like a kid's version of the book, and then someone else had seen it, and then the third person I was watching it with hadn't seen it before, and they kind of freaked out, or not freaked out, but were kind of like, "That's such a dumb ending." And I don't think really that they were complaining so much about the ending, like the idea that it's spoiler alert, but it's a 150-year-old book. That bacteria is what kills off the aliens so much as like the way it happens in the movie, where it just like the movie ends and then Morgan Freeman kind of conveniently voiceovers what happened. I think that
yeah,
was
but
more
that's okay,
almost.
and that's like I don't think because that's how the book sort of ends that way too, just sort of abruptly, doesn't it?
I think so. I mean, it's been a long time since I read it.
Yeah, I read it when I was like 14, so that's like that's what's frustrating to me is I was hearing those people. I'm like, okay, like I don't. If they had changed the ending, I think a lot of people who know the book would have been really ticked off if they had changed the ending. I
But I
think the
mean,
prop.
to be fair, the whole movie isn't really isn't too much like the book, because the book for the I mean, on the one hand, the book takes place in the 1800s in
Right.
Europe. Like there's a lot of things that they did change with it. But yeah, that's kind of one of the big things about the book that I think is kind of like this is the stuff we need to hang on to. You know.
Yeah, and that's to be perfectly honest. I think a lot of people's. I think the movie works just like a lot of other like Spielberg sort of action adventure movies work. As where it's just kind of fun and it doesn't like. I guess I'd put it on the same. It's just enjoyable to watch, like a fun ride, basically. Um, and the reason that I think a lot of people had a problem with that ending is because it's sort of a. I feel like that whole concept where like something about our environment like messes with whatever is attacking the environment. That's like a cliched ending now because of War of the Worlds, because of the book.
Yeah, because like science. Yeah, science has that.
Yeah, and it's actually something that people complain about with science too. That I don't understand why people complain about it in science because anyway, yeah, that's just another thing that bugs me. But anyway, I really enjoy War of the Worlds. So, Alex, have you seen it?
Yeah, I saw it. It was quite a while ago when I saw it, so I mean, I have to go back every watch and kind of reevaluate it. But I remember when I did see it, I really liked it. I thought it was a lot of fun to watch, very entertaining. I also liked it too because it was really suspenseful and like kind of scary at some points. So I liked that part of it, but it wasn't too scary where to the point where I pretty much had where to the point where I had to cover my face with my hands and watch the movie that way. But no, but I enjoyed it. I haven't read the book, so I can't speak on how well the movie translated. But I mean, I liked it. I thought it was fun. I thought it was just a fun movie to watch.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree with that. And then the last thing, I mean, I rewatched 21 Jump Street, but I think we'll get into that when we actually talk about 22 Jump Street.
hmm
alrighty. So Alex, what have you watched recently?
Recently, I actually went back and watched some movies I should have watched a long time ago. The first being Lethal Weapon.
Nice.
Yeah, it was a pretty is a I mean it's a fun movie to watch, man. It's great action. Story's fine. I mean, this is like a good 80s movie. the music was good too, even if there was like way too much saxophone in it. But it
Uh, Eric Clapton worked on the soundtrack, so I always have a soft spot for it just because I love Eric Clapton music,
he did.
which is probably that's probably a reason for all the saxophone is because Eric Clapton's involved. But
Yeah, I'm guessing so. I was a little surprised when I first saw that on the credits because I didn't know he had worked on it. So I thought that was kind of cool. And I just kept going with the saxophone. I was a little thrown off, but I mean, it worked well with the movie at least, you know.
Yeah. I
if you
I really liked Lethal Weapon. The first time I watched it was on a plane, which was awkward for people sitting next to me. There's some like inappropriate stuff in that movie that caught me off guard. I'm not gonna lie. Like I was not expecting. Isn't the first scene with the girl in the suite at the top of the hotel or whatever?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
when
I
she
remember
commits suicide,
Hmm.
turning it on and being like, "Oh, nobody look at my screen from the side, please."
Hmm.
um, but yeah, it's just a those are just fun movies for sure.
Yeah.
yeah,
Uh,
you should definitely check out Lethal Weapon 2 pretty soon. I think if what I remember correctly, I actually think I liked Lethal Weapon 2 better than Lethal Weapon 1.
mm.
Lethal Weapon 3 and 4 aren't as good, but Lethal Weapon 2 is pretty great.
Yeah, I definitely plan on watching the rest of the series, just seeing how they compare.
I think
But
I
sorry.
think they're all running together for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, go ahead, Alex.
All right, I was just going to talk about so the second movie that I watched recently, another one I should have gone to a long time ago was Ghostbusters. And again, I mean, just a fun movie to watch, I guess. I've just been watching fun movies recently. Um, I'm,
That's
I'm,
such a nice change of pace for you, Alex, because we all love dark, depressing movies.
yeah, yeah, I know. But
Yeah, I'm surprised you liked Ghostbusters, considering nobody really dies at the end.
no, no one really does. But I mean, no. I mean, I like fun movies too. But it was good. I guess I kind of see how it's become sort of like a cult classic, I guess you could say. I guess I didn't like it as much as I probably thought I would have. I mean, I like
Hmm.
Bill Murray, he's great, and everyone else in the movie is fantastic. But I mean, overall, I mean, I thought it was good. It just wasn't great. I didn't think it was that great. It was funny enough, but not entirely entertaining. I might go rewatch it sometime, but not. I wouldn't be excited to.
Hmm.
Yeah,
I just have really good memories of watching it when I was a kid. I like my dad had this period of time where he introduced us all to like a bunch of Bill Murray movies, including Groundhog Day, Ghostbusters, the what was it, Stripes, and like
oh yeah.
and oh, what's the Caddyshack? And the
Mm.
only one that I remember being allowed to watch after we watched them the first time was Ghostbusters.
Hmm.
Because I think he forgot how rough like Stripes and
Oh,
Caddyshack were.
yeah.
So Stripes is great, by the way. If you haven't seen that, that's a
I think I
really
started watching the first like 10 minutes or so of
It's
it, and then I
funny.
never got to watch the rest. Go ahead, Nick.
It's funny you're talking about Ghostbusters because a lot of people rag on Ghostbusters 2. I haven't seen it in a long time, but I remember liking Ghostbusters 2.
I like
So
both of
that's
them
one
a
that
lot.
I'm eager to go back to. Yeah, but I just know a lot of people like there's a reason like Ghostbusters 3, wasn't really happening when it should have, and a lot of that's because of Ghostbusters 2, and I never got that because I always thought it was, while probably not as good as Ghostbusters 1, I thought it was, at least, a pretty good installment in that franchise.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. Well, anyway, um, that I guess brings us to the end of what we've watched recently. And now we're gonna move on to some movie news. I'm gonna introduce this first topic. I don't know how much we're gonna have to say about this. Um,
Not much.
the recently it was announced that I think was this at the end of the day on Friday that Jason Momoa
Yeah.
is was announced to be cast as Aquaman in Batman versus Superman, or sorry, Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. So, if for those of you who don't know, Jason Momoa is he still on Game of Thrones or did he get killed off?
No, he went the way of Dodo a couple seasons back.
Um,
Spoiler.
and oh man, he played Conan the Barbarian, I believe, or was that someone
Yeah, and
else?
the remake that came out.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, in the
No, that
remake.
was him.
Yeah, so that's Jason Momoa. I'm not terribly excited. I feel like there could have been a better choice out there.
I think the only thing that I really get from it is is that this is their way probably of trying to make us take Aquaman seriously, is by casting someone who actually looks like they could, murder you, as opposed to, just being a guy who, can talk to dolphins or whatever.
Yeah, but
Um,
okay. I was just gonna say like, yeah, he looks like he can murder you, but I feel like there's other people that look like they can murder you who have a better rep as far as like acting goes. I don't know
yeah,
that
I
that's
mean,
even fair. I haven't seen too much of him.
yeah,
I've just always gotten the
yeah,
impression that he's sort of like an Arnold Schwarzenegger type actor, and that doesn't seem to be
no,
that popular these days.
no, I mean, I guess it depends on what you're on what you're defining as an Arnold Schwarzenegger type actor. I mean, he's a very, physical performer. He's a very angry person in most of his roles. Um, so I mean, yeah, I mean, I think it'll definitely be a different take on the character than what you know people expect. Um, and so that's really all I can talk about right now. Is I think if that's what they're going for, you know, he's probably a decent enough person to go with. Obviously, we won't be able to tell until we actually see the movie.
Yeah. Alex, did you have anything to say on that topic, or not really?
Not really. I mean, I was while you guys were talking, I was taking a look at his IMDb record, and among Conan, he's got a bullet to the head. So I mean, I think that solidifies him. He's gonna be a great actor.
Well, Nick, that's kind of what I mean, like the Arnold Schwarzenegger slash like Sylvester Stallone, which in the '80s was like their movies were like the thing. Their action
Yeah,
movies, their
I
fighting
mean,
movies were like the thing. But at the same time, like, and I don't know any of these people obviously, but they always seem to play. Even now, they seem to play sort of meatheads. Um, and I don't think like I feel like that may not be the way to go to get people to take Aquaman seriously.
yeah, I would agree. I mean,
So
but I think a huge, I think a difference is that I think Jason Momoa can actually act compared to at least Arnold. I think he's got a broader range than Arnold does. Um, but I mean, we'll have to wait and see.
all right, yeah. All right. So who wants to bring up the next topic?
Again,
I'll,
Okay.
so we this week we also saw the release of the trailer and also a really awesome poster for Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg, who previously directed This Is the End and also wrote This Is the End, Superbad, Pineapple Express, their new movie, The Interview, which the basic pitch is that James Franco and Seth Rogen play a news reporter and his producer who get assigned by the CIA to kill Kim Jong Un. So, so that's a pretty high concept comedy right there. And the trailer, I don't think it doesn't show us a lot. It's a way more visual than I think maybe we were expecting for a comedy. And even the poster isn't what you expect for a normal comedy. Instead of just being like the traditional white background and then here's your stars and then here's the title, it's fashioned in the communist propaganda poster tradition. And so I'm really excited for it, kind of mostly just based on the concept. And I think it's no secret I enjoy Seth Rogen comedies for the most part, and I think this one has a pretty interesting setup behind it. So I'm kind of excited to see uh, just to see it when it comes out in the fall.
I'm more curious to see if it has any political repercussions.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. I mean, North Korea is a pretty cut off country from the rest of the world, so
Well,
it's I mean,
no,
possible that
the people are cut off. Kim Jong Un is not cut off.
That's true. Yeah, yeah.
Like
I
I'm
can,
I'm I'm sure he's going to get some sort of word about this movie being released, but um, either way, the whole thing's just kind of. I think that's kind of interesting. I'm not terribly excited about the movie for any of the reasons that you listed. Other than the fact that I think the concept is interesting. I feel like it'd be a more interesting film in somebody else's hands.
agree to
Um,
disagree.
Yeah.
but yeah. So anyway, Alex, do you wanna talk about the next one, or at
Uh,
least introduce it?
I'll introduce it because actually saw this too. It's the Dumb and Dumber 2 trailer, and
Yes.
I haven't seen Dumb and Dumber. It's another movie I probably
What?
should. Yeah, I know. So I haven't seen that, but at least I thought the the trailer was pretty funny and really completely off the wall. So I guess I'm maybe excited to see it.
Yeah.
Probably when it comes out on DVD.
You don't have to, Alex. I'm not telling you have to be excited to see Dumb and Dumber 2. I'm curious to see what Nick thought about it.
Um, so like, I mean, I enjoy Dumb and Dumber. I mean, I'm not the biggest Dumb and Dumber fan in the world. Um, the trailer for this, I mean, there were a couple moments I laughed, but I think the type of humor in Dumb and Dumber doesn't work like compressed into 2 minutes. I think it's something that you kind of have to get used to while watching in the movie. I think because there's a certain after like 10, 15 minutes of it, you kind of just accept what's going to happen. And so when crazy random stuff starts happening, you know, it's easy for you to kind of go into that as opposed to just being thrown all these different highlights in the span of 2 minutes. I mean, it's kind of the same thing in like the Anchorman movies. Like the Anchorman movies can get, sometimes really off the wall and really kind of surreal. And most of those moments aren't in the trailer. They're in the movie when it kind of, you kind of get into a rhythm. And even in the context of the movie, they still feel kind of like out of nowhere, but at least you've kind of been, trained to expect it because you've
I
had 30 minutes or 40 minutes of whatever coming before it. So the trailers, kind of hit and miss for me. I don't even know if it's a movie I'm really excited to see in theaters because, like I said, I'm not the biggest Dumb and Dumber 1 fan. So I don't
Okay.
know. I guess
Well,
I have to see.
um,
go
I
ahead, Alex.
actually, I mean, I actually kind of disagree with you, Nick, on what you're saying about how you can't really compress the Dumb and Dumber 2 trailer into the 2 minutes. I think because it already has an established audience with Dumb and Dumber, people already know what to expect. They already know that it's going to be this kind of comedy. And again, since I haven't seen Dumb and Dumber, you guys can attest to how that humor relates to this new trailer. But I mean, since it already has that established audience, I think that the humor just it can immediately click with people, especially people who have already seen the movie, the first
That's
movie.
yeah, I kind of agree with Alex. Like when that trailer came up during my screening of 22 Jump Street, everyone in the theater was cracking up at it, but they weren't like there were only like two things in the trailer that I actually thought were somewhat funny. I think most people were just cracking up because it was a Dumb and Dumber trailer. Like,
Yeah.
and they were being stupid. And I also have to disagree with your comparison of at least the prequel, whatever that was called, Dumb and Dumber.
Oh,
Um,
I never saw it. So
okay, that is a horrible movie. But I have to disagree on your comparison of Dumb and Dumber to like the Anchorman movies or an Adam McKay movie,
well,
basically,
I mean,
because
they're completely different types of humor.
no, I don't think they are completely different types of humor, though. I think the same people who enjoy Anchorman movies are the same people who enjoy Dumb and Dumber. I think Dumb and Dumber is a way better movie than Anchorman 2 because I think there's a cleverness to how stupid they're being. There's a cleverness in the way it's set up for how stupid they're being. And I think even in the Dumb and Dumber 2 trailer, it's shown in like just the little phone call thing at the end.
Okay,
Um,
the reason I think that moment works is because it's allowed to play off. A lot of the moments, the two moments that I laughed at in the trailer are the opening bit where it's the whole 20-year gag, and that, I mean, that works in the context there, but it also works if you have a pre-established idea of Dumb and Dumber, um, and then that gag, because it's allowed to play out. Like the other stuff is just random, stupid stuff that's being kind of thrown at you, you know.
Yeah. But anyway, that's either way, I'm not particularly excited for this movie because I thought the rest of the trailer looked fairly stupid. But the and I like Dumb and Dumber was nothing particularly special, but I did really like the original Dumb and Dumber. And Alex, I would highly recommend you watch it. And Nick, I'm surprised you're not a bigger fan of it, considering you're such a big fan of the Anchorman movies.
I mean, I think those are two different types of humor. So I don't think, I think Dumb and Dumber has more in common with, what would it have more in common with? I don't know. Dumb and Dumber is completely in a category of its own. The more I think about it.
Dude, no, I think these days, especially, its closest like comparisons are probably the Adam McKay films. Maybe not like the other guys, but Anchorman, Anchorman 2, Step Brothers. Those, I think those are probably its.
Yeah, I think it's Step Brothers. I can see what you mean with Step Brothers.
Um, but anyway, I don't really want to talk about this much more. We've talked too long about Dumb and Dumber. Nick, do you want to take the last bit of news?
Yeah. So one of the movies that I'm really excited about seeing in the fall is David Ayer's Fury. David Ayer, he wrote Training Day. He also wrote and directed End of Watch. And so Fury is kind of this old-fashioned World War II adventure movie. I don't know, or just a straight-up war film about a tank unit in World War II. It stars Brad Pitt, Shia LaBeouf, Logan Lerman, Michael Pena, and then I can't remember his name, but he's from The Walking Dead. And to me, it just, the idea behind it, you know, just following a single tank unit in World War II, that's not something that I think we've seen a lot of. Usually when we get World War II movies, they're either very broad or they're kind of highlights of history that we're kind of familiar with. And two, the footage that, you know, they showed us in that little featurette looks gorgeous. They shot it on film, on location in Europe, using more traditional methods, no handheld, no shaky cam, all cranes or dollies and stuff. And so I'm excited for it just because I think it looks like a good old fashioned World War II film, which I'm a huge fan of.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see it. I didn't watch the first look thing that we're talking about, so I don't know anything about that, but I'm excited about the concept of it. So, and I love End of Watch. I think End of Watch was one of the best movies of a couple years ago. So, that just makes me more excited to see it.
Yeah, definitely. It'll be interesting to see what he can do with a much bigger budget.
Yeah, so that pretty much sums up our film news for this week. So again, you can find more stuff. It's not usually about film news, but sometimes on our website, the-letterbox.com. And that's going to move us into our main topic this week, which is going to be somewhat of a review of 22 Jump Street. So, guys, what did you think of 22 Jump Street? I guess, what did you guys think of 21 Jump Street? Then we'll talk about 22 Jump Street.
Oh, I mean, 21 Jump Street was good. It was a lot of. I mean, it's a good comedy. Really well, solidly built, and the actors are great. Jokes are constantly funny. So, no, I don't think there's anything really wrong with it at all.
Yeah. I love 21 Jump Street. Sorry, Nate, go ahead. But yeah, I love it.
21 Jump Street, I think, at least thinking back, it was my favorite comedy the year it came out, which is what, it's been like 2 years since it came out.
Yeah.
And then rewatching it this past week, it's, you know, it was nice to see that it still holds up. And I remember, I think the main thing with that first movie is that we didn't expect it to be, not that we didn't expect it to be good, but we didn't expect it to be that good because,
Right.
I mean, you know, it was a film adaptation reboot of a 1980s TV show, which obviously movies of that sort have a great track record. Not really at all. And it was the first live action movie, and kind of the first, even though Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs had been successful, it's kind of the first breakout movie where it was like, oh, Phil Lord and Chris Miller, like this is what their movie feels like, kind of like crazy visual humor, sharp, puns and whatnot. And so yeah, I think the biggest thing of that movie was kind of the sense of wonder coming out of it and being like, oh my gosh, like Channing Tatum is actually a funny guy. It was a total surprise the year it came out, and it's nice to see that it holds up even 2 years later when we're kind of used to this humor and we've kind of seen other attempts at it. Whether it's through Lord Miller's work in the Lego Movie, like kind of their style has been established, and it's nice to see that it works so well in that movie 2 years ago.
Yeah, I just gotta say, like, I think something that puts the at least 21 Jump Street sort of just like a step above the rest, especially in terms of accessibility, is it's sort of the only word I can really think of to describe it is that it's kind of meta in the way that it pokes fun at itself, and pokes fun at what it is. And I think we even see that more in 22 Jump Street, and we'll talk about that. But because it totally, like, within the first 20 minutes of the film, it has made a joke at its own expense probably 5 times, and it's hilarious because you get what it's doing, and it's great, and the chemistry between Jonah Hill and Channing Tatum, and the situations that the script has put them in is pretty perfect. And I think, and like you said, Nick, I think there's something about like the Phil Lord and Chris Miller style, where there's just like an energy to the movie that is just like it's undeniable, and you can't really escape it while you're watching any of their movies. And I think it's great. So yeah, that's 21 Jump Street. So what did you guys think of 22 Jump Street then?
I'd say just about the same. I mean, again, it was, I'd say about as funny. And what I kind of liked about 22 Jump Street that I noticed is it was, I guess you say it was like self-aware. Like you were mentioning earlier how I think it was 21 Jump Street was making jokes at its own expense, and like 22 Jump Street was like not even halfway through the film was almost was also making jokes about itself and almost hinting, I guess you could say, at like a sequel.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. With the are we talking about spoilers or the 23 Jump Street condominiums?
That's not really. I don't want to say that's a spoiler, but essentially, for those of you who haven't seen it, Channing Tatum and Jonah Hill are walking across the street to the new 22 Jump Street, and they see construction in the back with a sign that says 23 Jump Street.
Which is just perfect. And then the joke about the how ice cubes
The cube of ice.
Yeah, he's like, oh, it looks like a cube of ice, which is perfect. But yeah, I'm just gonna skip over Nick and say I actually thought in a lot of ways it was almost funnier than 21 Jump Street. The twist with the girl that Jonah Hill is interested in, like, I was totally not expecting that, and that just left me like laughing for like a good 5 minutes of the movie.
I'd say that was definitely one of the better parts of the movie. I mean, like everyone in the movie theater I went to was just cracking up.
Yeah, that was absolutely hilarious. Wait, Nick, what did you think? I was kidding about skipping over you.
Yeah, thank you. I actually think, I mean, it's tough to say. I mean, even though I did watch both of them in the span of a week, but I think 22 Jump Street is like half a step better than 21 Jump Street, and I think because like 21 Jump Street, it kind of feels like a movie, like even though it has the meta jokes and whatever, like it still feels like there's like a self-contained movie in there. And not to say that 22 Jump Street doesn't, but that it's just throwing so much stuff at you that it almost feels like it transcends being a movie, and it's just like like I don't even know what to describe it as at some points, without getting into spoilers or just for a lack of uh, words to describe it. Yeah, I just think it's basically the difference between Bad Boys 1 and Bad Boys 2, where you could just tell like the budget's bigger. They're throwing everything they can into this movie. Like basically by the end of this movie, um, without spoiling something else, it kind of makes you wonder how they could even do another one. You know?
Yeah, that's actually the one thing that, especially with like the credit sequence and everything, I'm like, I was sitting there thinking like, man, can they make another one?
And I don't know if I want them to make another one. Like I would almost rather like Phil Lord and Chris Miller do their own thing, or that they do something different with Channing Tatum and Jonah Hill. Like keep that partnership, but don't like do something else outside of those movies. Just because like the way this one wraps up is kind of perfect.
but at the same time, if anyone else tried to do a third one, like if it wasn't them, you wouldn't want to see it. I feel like so. It's like, yeah, I don't know, because it was pretty awesome. Um, yeah, I don't know.
I
I don't
think
know.
wait without actually I don't know. Does spoiling a joke count as a spoiler?
I don't know, but you're warning everybody who's worried about it. So
Well, I just want to say, well, yeah, whatever. I'll let you decide. Should we wait or should we just go into spoilers? Because I feel like with this movie, um, if people are interested in it and they want to just know if we think it was funny, like I think we can all agree it was funny. And I think the next bit will be us just going into and dissecting jokes and plot twists and whatnot. So
I do want to say one thing just in terms of like its content as a raunchy comedy as an R-rated comedy. um I the tri I went to see this with my girlfriend, whom you both know, and she loves the first 21 Jump Street, which is crazy to me because like she doesn't like Superbad, she doesn't like any of those other R-rated, raunchy comedies. But she loves 21 Jump Street, and like the trailers for this movie made it seem like the movie was going to be like they go to spring break in the trailers, and there's like suggested like nudity even in the trailers, and suggested sort of debauchery in the trailers, that I was very pleasantly surprised to find that was not like this movie was like on the same level in terms of its like raunchiness as the first one. They didn't feel like they had to be like,
it's less.
yeah, that's
It's
I was
actually
actually going to
less.
say that. It's actually, I think, less raunchy but funnier somehow. And I would really appreciate that watching the movie, that they didn't feel like they were like, okay, to make this better, we have to be grosser. Because that like I feel like a lot of raunchy comedy sequels tend to feel like they need to do that.
Yeah, I think the only real thing in this movie is language, is
Yeah.
the big thing.
Hmm.
Otherwise, I don't think there's really much that's R-rated about it, other than some
Yeah.
violence.
Well, there's some I think is hilarious, but is also a lot of people may not think that that's hilarious.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, let's get into spoilers. So from this point forward, we will be talking about spoilers for 22 Jump Street. So if you don't want it to be spoiled, tune in next week when we're going to be talking about How to Train Your Dragon 2. So spoilers for 22 Jump Street. Nick, you had something to say.
Okay. Oh, okay. So I really want to talk about the credits, but the gag that I laughed a lot at, and not a lot of people caught, is when I can't remember if they're in Ice Cube's office or Nick Offerman's office, and they're trying to figure out what they're going to do next. And Channing Tatum makes the suggestion that they should go into the Secret Service and protect the White House, which, if you paid any attention,
Which
White
was
House
White
down,
House
starring
Down.
Channing Tatum.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
exactly.
I thought that was pretty funny. I was the only one in the theater though who laughed at that, but
Oh
Yeah, I
man,
did not catch that actually. But yeah,
I
it was actually in Nick Offerman's office. Now that I remember.
yeah.
yeah.
Even I thought the The joke. Oh man, there's so many great jokes. I like the Kate Blanchett joke.
I laughed really hard at that one. That's
Um,
a joke.
because it was like that was one of those jokes that was like sort of a joke about the movie, but also just like Channing Tatum's character being stupid.
Hmm.
And I
Um,
love his reaction when he finds out that Schmidt has been sleeping with the captain's daughter. Is
oh
just
my,
ended him running around high-fiving everyone, just making like the funniest noises and just like so excited and so laughing.
Hmm.
That was a good reaction.
and the scene where the walks out and sees Jonah Hill. Oh
Oh
my
yeah,
gosh, that whole scene, and when Queen Latifah shows up,
Hmm.
oh my gosh, I could not stop laughing like with the green beans.
but
Oh
yeah.
man.
Although it was funny that like it makes sense like in the whole kind of mentality of the movie is go big or go home, but at the same time like Queen Latifah really just is in like a couple shots of the movie, so it's kind of funny when like she shows up, it's like oh hey it's Queen Latifah, and then she's like gone before you know
Hmm.
it.
Yeah.
Uh,
Um, and that dude, even the opening scene of that movie is like fantastic. With the where they've got they each pull out their guns and they're doing all like the swooping shots of them with the guns.
oh that's one thing that like it's not a problem with the movie, but it's one thing that kind of confused me. So the movie opens with a preview on 21 Jump Street, which I thought was great.
Hmm.
And it basically recaps the whole first movie.
Hmm.
At the end of the first movie, Ice Cube goes,
Except for
"Hey,
a scene that wasn't in the first movie.
yeah, yeah." Yeah." But in the end of the recap, Ice Cube goes, "You guys are going to college," and then it cuts to them, but they're just like taking classes online as opposed to like going and infiltrating the college, which is what you kind of think. Oh, it'll just lead into the next one. It's kind of like Back to the Future Part Two, where you kind of write yourself into a corner by saying, "Oh, we're going to the future in the next one." It's just kind of a throwaway gag, and it's like, "Oh, we have to actually do something with that." And so that the beginning with them in college on the iPad when they're in the parking lot, were they taking online classes or I don't know. That just
Yeah,
kind
they
of
said that. They said
did
they were
they?
taking. They were
Oh,
browsing online classes for code.
gotcha. And then because in that video that they're doing, they talk about yin and yang, and that's what the two twin guys are called later. And I remember that afterwards and was like, okay, what was the connection? But otherwise, that was really the only part that I was confused or didn't get
Well,
right away.
I think the yin and yang thing that the it was in that class they were talking about, and also goes with the two brothers that were twins. I guess that's more of a reference to Channing Tatum and Jonah Hill's like
That's very
friendship
true.
or bromance that they got going.
That's very true.
Oh,
Look at Alex being
oh,
all smart here.
Uh-huh.
dang,
Yeah,
Alex,
good
this is some
knowledge.
metaphor there. Nice. Yeah, I think I like. There's so many jokes in the movie. I feel like it'd be impossible for us to like go through and pick out our favorites, especially
As-
without seeing
But
it
I
again.
think we can agree that the movie somehow gets better during the end credits.
Well, during the I I don't know. I'm tentative. Like I'm worried about saying that the end credits might overstay their welcome. But the first part of them, I was laughing hysterically for sure.
Oh, I thought the later stuff was really funny too. Because at first, I mean, spoilers obviously here. Basically, they go through what every single future Jump Street movie could be about. So they go to medical school, they go to culinary school.
Hmm.
Um,
They
Ballet
have the
school.
the rise of the villains or whatever.
Rise of the Villains. I think my favorite one though was a 21 Jump Street Generations, where they hook up with the older
Oh,
guys from the TV show. It just seemed
I
like
I
that.
liked 21 Jump Street where they go to
Oh,
space.
yeah.
the one that most people laughed in the theater when I was at was the ballet school 21
Oh
Jump.
yeah, the dance
Oh yeah.
school.
Yeah.
I love the bit where they do the Sunday school one, and they factor in like if Jonah Hill had a contract dispute, so Seth Rogen has to take his place for
Oh
one
yeah,
film.
that was pretty
Um,
great.
yeah, and so it's just kind of that thing where it seemed like the filmmakers realized that like we're probably not going to do another one, so let's come up with what like the dumbest ideas to do for another one are, and just show like little glimpses of them, And like on the one hand, like there's part of me that's like, oh, I'd love to see it, but on the other hand, I'm like, I don't think it would work as a film. Like if they did like a 2 minute fake trailer for each of those, like I would be okay with that. But, like otherwise, I just don't see how they go forward after this
See,
if they actually
but
do a 23
that's
jump.
that's the thing is that like that's what I'm saying is I don't think it's a studio movie. I think with how much money this is going to make the studio, I don't think the studio is just going to let it go. So I'd
Yeah,
rather see
totally.
Phil Lord and Chris Miller make the third one than somebody else try and come in and do it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it's like a double-edged sword there because I feel like in order to make a third one work, they're gonna have to get real clever.
Yeah.
Skip straight to the real nightmare stuff where 22 Jump Street is happening in the real world.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of nightmares, I think the biggest laugh in the context of the movie was Jonah Hill's bad trip and Channing Tatum's good trip.
Yeah, with the "Can You Take Me Higher" like
Yeah.
theme song. Oh my gosh, I was laughing so hard.
Oh, so funny. And the thing I love about these movies and kind of Chris Lord and Phil Miller in general is that in addition to just like working with really funny scripts and knowing how to direct their actors and get the best out of them, they're also really good, visual comedy directors. Like we mentioned, kind of the 23 Jump Street gag in the beginning where you see the condos being built. They do make a comment on it, but it's kind of just one of those things in the background that is kind of like, oh, that's kind of a nice thing to throw in there and notice. And I feel like the movie is kind of full of those little references here and there that kind of just add so much more to the movie.
Yeah. All right, so that's gonna, I think, conclude our podcast for the week. Like I said at the beginning, you can find more episodes of Outside the Letterbox on our website, the-letterbox.com, as well as on iTunes just by searching for Outside the Letterbox. You can leave us a review on iTunes or comment on our site. You can also find more articles about movies and film news on our website. I think next week we're going to be talking about How to Train Your Dragon 2, so join us then. We'll see you guys next week.